open spaces safely. We did post some information to promote safety when using closing the playgrounds down, but using the park safely. Those are at every park where there is a playground. We do have signs posted. We do have porta potties out, especially along the beach and in a few areas for people using them facilities. There was, just going off the CDC guidelines, there was we were to consider closing to support social distancing areas that might include sport fields, playgrounds, skate parks, basketball courts, tennis courts, and picnic areas. So in them areas that we do have, like the tennis court, the skate park, and pickleball, which have a gated area, we did lock them gates to prevent people from using them and using the social distancing. Some other, like the outdoor recreation guidelines, maintaining the 6 feet of separation between participants from different households. Groups within a single household they are encouraged to use outdoor activities or sports that do not allow social distancing. Some of them, soccer and basketball, they actually called them out, but not engaging in those activities with members of other households. I know that's another reason why we did lock up them facilities, just trying to monitor them areas. Summer rec, like I said, we did have a Zoom meeting. They did include the DLCCC, City of DL, Community Ed, Boys and Girls Club, Minnesota Flyers, youth soccer, hockey, and baseball. And there's going to be another meeting scheduled for May 19th also. Kim did say it best. She ran the meeting. It's great to live in a community that isn't saying no, we're saying yes. Let's try to figure something out. Our kids in our community need it, even if major delays and modifications are needed for this year. There was a lot of talk. Let's try to make something happen if we have to hold off, but let's not close it down. Other communities have closed down their summer rec for the year, and some of them have delayed it out till sometime in July. But we are trying to keep them open. Some cities have closed the parks, tennis courts, swimming pools, and beaches for the entire summer. We're still trying to wait and see what the next governor's executive order brings and if the CDC lines up on some of their guidelines. I know it's been interesting reading some of the articles from what other cities are doing from around the country. And at the end of one of them articles, it did say, we remind the cities that the need to be flexible in ways they can respond to the community needs. So I think that is important. I think we're taking that into account when we're looking at items like this, the skateboard park and tennis court. And I think we are taking the community's best interests in consideration.
Yeah, Sean, I'm glad to hear you say that. And I hope that, you know, I would encourage at least some flexibility in looking at the scheduling too, because I think not having things for kids to do after they've been out of school here for 2.5 months is going to be real ugly and we just got to get something at some point where we can tell them to use common sense, and hopefully they can do that as parents. And as tough to tell the kids that, but the parents should be able to at least communicate that.
Exactly. Kelsey, did I leave anything out?
You mentioned the park board meeting, Sean. I have one question on that, but is there anything that came out of that meeting? I see Tom's behind you too. Is there anything that you guys wanted to fill us in on what the park board's doing?
Well, we discussed some of the improvements that, and we'll be voting on them a little bit later too, would be we're painting the pavilion. I think that is in dire need of some painting and some, just some exterior upkeep for the most part. We discussed the summer rec, of course. Kim she's involved on that park board. So we did discuss that meeting from the summer rec program.
How about the Larry Bubolt's naming? Is that any further along?
The signs are ordered. And I have talked to John. We're going to be going through the park. It's going along that trail, that new trail that's going in, and talking with John and getting him some locations and exactly what we need so they can put them footings in as we go with that.
So at some point when it's appropriate, we could maybe have a little ceremony down there. I'd like to see us do that, but maybe that'd be later this summer or something.
Yes, I think it'd be great to have an unveiling of them signs as soon as the trail's done and the signs can be put in.
Great. Okay. I'm sorry, Kelsey, if I interrupted you. Anything else you want to add?
Nope, I don't have anything.
All right, then let's move on to item B is consideration to approval of a sign plan for alcohol and dogs on the beach. Sean, is this you or Kelsey or?
Well, I included this in the packet here. Chief Todd, I and Tom, we identified a few locations if the signs need to go in and where we thought they would make the most sense. And those are the proposed sign locations that you have in front of you there. One note I would add, the areas where I have a garbage tote or a recycling tote, it would be a matter of removing the current post that's in there, just putting a longer post in, putting the sign up top, and then putting the hook back down so we could put them totes at the proper height.
Okay, so you're looking for feedback from committee members here?
Yes, sir.
All right. Please weigh in. I know we have, not only committee members, but we got a couple other folks that are interested in this.
Bruce, where does this stem from, or how did this come to be? I'm just curious.
Well, I guess I could let Kelsey speak to that, but I think there's been a couple years worth of discussions on should we have some signs on the beach relative to dogs and alcohol.
Okay. If I could, Mr. Imholt, my feelings on this, I don't think we need them. I think if you drive along the beach now, starting at the Legion and go all the way to the Pavilion, there's already 10 signs that start with no. To me, that's just not a big welcoming, come to DL, we want you in part of town, we want the tourism. That just doesn't help build the relationship. I think that DL was built on tourism. I think that what we're doing now is great. If we do have an instance, Chief has been more than happy to stop down and have a good conversation with some folks that would be willing to, put the booze away, anything like that. I don't think it's gotten out of hand. You look at the way society is going now, it seems like dogs are welcome everywhere. I also think that when we redo the road and put the walking trail up by the road there and the sidewalk in the beach, I believe that's still the plan. I think that'll take care of a lot of this. But to me, this just screams, leave your wallet at the city limits and don't come to DL. So I would not be in favor of at least 9 signs, maybe a few less in key spots, but I don't think we need 9 signs.
Sean, can you clarify for the committee, are these signs in addition to the ones that are on the beach now, or would you put these up and take the other ones down?
Right now, like I said, Chief Todd, Tom, and I drove the beach and looked at that area. We did not see any no alcohol signs currently. There are some no dog allowed signs, and so some of these would replace them.
Okay.
And again, I don't want to see our beach littered in signposts, and that's why we picked the locations we did, so we would not be putting in additional posts. It would be using the trash receptacle posts that are already there, just making them longer. And this would be the total number of signs for the no alcohol or dogs allowed on the beach. That'd be the total number of signs for the whole beach. Any current no dogs allowed signs that are in rough shape, they'd be taken down.
Okay.
I know there's one large, I think it's kind of a painted sign that has more than just that on there. Does anybody else recollect that? I'm trying to think if that's down by Rossman Avenue or.
That's done
Actually, I looked for that sign because when I first moved to town here about 10 years ago, I saw that. I believe that's been down for 2 or 3 years now. Maybe Tom can help me.
About a year. Yeah, it's rotted and the posts are rotted, and we were going to see what the new vision would be for the Westlake Drive.
Okay, all right, so that sign's gone, okay. So what I hear Councilman Boki advocating for is no signs. Does anybody else want to chime in here?
So,
Oh, go ahead.
well, just Dan Winter here. You know, my feelings on this are pretty much along with Matt's. I mean, it doesn't excite me, but since we're not going to have alcohol or dogs on the beach, I remember the chiefs telling us last year that when he did have conversations with people on the 4th of July, they pointed out that how were they supposed to know that there were no alcohol and especially dogs allowed on the beach because there were no signs? So while signs don't excite me in the ordinance, we have even less until we get the ordinance changed. I'm thinking we should have a few signs there. And the ones that are suggested here seem to be, you know, in good spots, but fairly unobtrusive. We're using existing, we're either replacing existing signs or putting them on posts that are already there. So with this, with the way this is described, I can go along with this only to make sure that people are informed, because one of the worst things to happen, and it has before, is to end up somewhere like our beach, have a dog or a couple of beers out there, and then be told without having an opportunity to see it for myself that it's not allowed. So that's why I guess I would go along this year with a few signs like described here. That's all, just to keep the public informed. But somewhere down the road, I think we need to look at this again. I know why it's there. It's just, but you hate to be too restrictive. Okay, that's all I'm going to say for now. So I'd go along with this.
Okay. Go ahead.
I guess Mr. Alder Crepes, I'm just going to go. You know, looking at this too, I guess, you know, some of my thought is we have signs that say no jumping off the bridge, and people do it hand over fist. It's in the tourism. I mean, why put another sign up if we're not going to enforce it? You know, the other thing is we got signs that say speed limit is 30 miles an hour, and we consistently hand out tickets and look at that. But, you know, do people follow those? I understand why we want them, but yet I guess to me, it just screams, we want tourism, but on our terms. You know, I don't think that this year would be any different. And I don't know if Chief would weigh in, but I don't think it's been a huge issue in the past, you know, other than the 4th of July, which is one weekend.
So a question either for Chief Todd or Sean, but I know that in the past, when I drive in on summer mornings, like 6:30, there's usually a crew picking up on the beach. Is there a lot of dog waste? Does anybody know if there's been a lot of dog waste on the beach at all?
I know that's Tom's crew that is cleaning that, so I will refer to him.
And there is time to time. But again, I guess the point stressed is that there is an ordinance that we do have in place, correct, that has no dogs allowed on the beach, whether on a leash or not. So again, just the way I look at it, we again try to limit the number of signs. And the signs that do exist up there were totally outdated. They blended in with the surroundings. So we went with a sign that was blue and less of them, so it attract their attention. So otherwise, my point is, how do you enforce something if you don't have it signed in a few locations?
Yeah, no, and I don't think, Tom, my argument isn't about the signs. It's probably, I understand the no alcohol from the Chief Todd standpoint, but I would say that in, 20 years of being on the council, somebody would have to correct me if anybody's ever been stopped with a dog on the beach, because even if you have the sign on there, people are still walking their dogs. That's uncontrollable, in my opinion. And I doubt that the police want to stop and get everybody that's walking a dog. So my question is, do we want to have the dog park, dog allowed, no dogs allowed? Do we want to try to have that and just selectively enforce it? Or do we just, do like some other cities do and put up those little doggy bag containers along the beach?
May I say something, Mr. Imholt?
Yes, please.
So on your question about dogs, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I come in early in the morning and see people out walking their dogs on that 3-foot wide sidewalk. And no, I don't stop and talk to them. They're out for an exercise walk. When you want that ordinance is on the 4th of July when there's 5,000 people packed on the beach and some fool brings his Rottweiler or his pit bull down there and they're in such close proximity that somebody else's family gets bit. That's when you want to have that ordinance so we don't have that type of a problem. And alcohol really is similar. The 4th of July, it's very crowded, it's hot, it gets to be a volatile environment. The no drinking clause or ordinance on the beach really helps us with keeping people from getting intoxicated by 2 or 3 in the afternoon like they used to. People are still drinking, but they're being more secretive about it so we don't see them. And it delays that getting drunk problem and starting fights, especially when you have the large crowds. So every year when we do the 4th of July detail, I debrief the officers that work down there. And I've talked to you guys about this before. That's one of the things that they always say is we're walking around, we're dealing with dogs on the beach and people drinking on the beach. And we go tell them that they're not allowed to do that. And they said, oh, I had no idea. So I'd like to see if a certain segment of our population will comply with these signages to follow our ordinance. We haven't tried that yet. The signs are really not visible. Would people go back to their cars with their dogs or their booze? If it doesn't work, I'll be the first to admit it doesn't and we'll move on. But I think it would be helpful, especially for those large gatherings down there, particularly on the 4th.
Sure. No, thanks for your input, Chief. Appreciate it. Looking for anybody else to weigh in on this. Natalie, did you have any comments?
No, I guess I was just actually waiting to hear from the chief, or that's what I was going to ask, what his preference was, or if he had thoughts about it. So yeah, I would agree with putting the signs up. And then they have something to look back to enforce.
Sure. Okay, so how about are there any participants or attendees that want to speak to this issue? Otherwise, I'll see if we can come to a consensus here. All right, so Dan and Natalie, I heard you guys would prefer or would like to see the signs up. Matt, are you still in the position of preferring not?
I prefer not, Bruce, but can we even come to an agreement and say, rather than going from 0 signs to 9 signs, can we start with 3 signs in the most key locations and see if it does anything to deter it?
Okay, so I'd ask either Chief Todd or Sean King to weigh in. Would you guys feel like this would be effective if you had maybe half the signs that are there, or would you like to start out with all of them?
Well, the tough part is Sean and Tom and I rode around together last week, and Sean really did a nice job of kind of picking out the areas that are entrances to the beach, particularly where people be walking in there. I don't know that 3 signs is going to adequately address it or give us a really decent sample size. Sean and I kind of talked, and Tom as well, about these access points, the different crosswalks at the busier intersections. So if you're asking me my preference, no offense to Matt, I love you, Matt, but I'd rather go with 9.
Okay. Okay, well, unless there's anybody else that wants to weigh in on this, I guess I'm going to have the Public Works Committee recommend tomorrow that we.
Bruce, Ron
Yep.
wants to comment.
Sure, go ahead, Ron.
I just want to put it out there, though. You guys got 4 committee members, so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ron, are you still there? Otherwise, save your comment for tomorrow. Mr. Boki, I'm sure if you want to speak up tomorrow when this item comes up, you're welcome to do so. But right now, the committee will recommend the signage and the locations. All right. Item C, consideration to reduce the transient commercial license fee for 2020. Is that you, Kelsey?
I think that's me. Beth Friday had sent me an email requesting a reduction of the transient merchant fee. Unfortunately, she's unable to make the call today. She's actually out delivering ice cream. So I think really the issue is she, along with some other transit merchants, paid the full max transient merchant fee. So the current transient merchant fee, I believe, is $275 plus $36 per day, or you can pay the max is up to 20 days. So her, with the ice cream truck and several others, they pay that max fee, and basically they can sell at as many events during that 6-month period. And basically her request was a consideration to reducing that max amount for this year because of the coronavirus, and kind of the same discussion maybe the council had with the liquor store or with the liquor license fees. You're seeing they're seeing a diminishment of business and bookings. She said that they've returned a lot of deposits. So they're expecting their business to be down quite a bit this summer. So that's what she's asking for. She's not asking for a waiver of all the fees, just asking for a reduction in that max fee.
So Kelsey, if I can ask a question, it's the 275 is a flat, and then it's $36 per day or per event or what?
Yeah, it's per day, which is basically a per event. Yeah.
So like if the event was a 3-day event, it would still just be $36
No, it'd be $36 per day.
per day. Okay. So in effect though, if they do less events, the fee would be less than the 900 and some dollars you're describing, correct?
Yeah, if they're under that 20 days. No. But I think her argument was that she's still going to be doing more than 20 days worth of events. But for one thing, the sales are less and there's probably fewer events. Her one example was the last day of school. Since there's no school, this used to be for her kind of the biggest month of the year for her. She'd be doing a lot of end of school events. Obviously, that's not taking place now. She's doing some hybrid events, but it's just nowhere near the volume. So even though she's still out there with the ice cream truck, it's just nowhere near the sales volume.
There's a couple of items on the consent agenda for food trucks. Are those individuals, they've paid the full fee, the Johnny's and the Brig?
I believe they're both proposing to pay the full fee, correct?
Okay.
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. So I certainly would welcome committee members to weigh in on this. I just give you my quick comment is I think in a way though, the limitation on the fee is self-imposing. If you're going to do less events or you think it's less profitable to be open with your food truck, you just do the per day thing. I guess I'd be, amenable to maybe adjusting that 275 flat fee if you want to do something there. But I guess I look at this differently than these folks don't have a fixed cost in terms of utilities, rent, real estate tax. I mean, if you look at the merchants downtown, everybody that does that, whether they're open or not, they still have to pay the city real estate tax. They still have to pay utilities to the city of Detroit Lakes. They still have to pay rent to whoever they're renting from. With a food truck, my bias shows here, but those folks, even if they're folks that live in town, which I'm happy that they live in town, but they typically don't have those fixed costs. They can choose to be open or not open. So that's kind of my comment, but yeah, please weigh in, other members.
Bruce, Dan Winter here. I agree with you. I was thinking almost exactly the same thing. Don't see a reason to reduce it when it already is self-limiting.
Thanks, Dan. Anybody else?
This is Natalie. So I can't remember, but did we, when we were talking about the liquor license fees, did they have to apply to have that reduced? Or did we just do it across the board?
Did across the board.
Okay. I guess I'm not opposed to that, because I think most of them applied for their license already and probably paid that max fee. I'm not opposed to them redoing their math and going with the other option if that is better for them.
Yeah, and I think that's very reasonable. If we want to say, you know, refund the max and then do the per day thing, if that makes more sense, sure. I like that suggestion.
I could get behind that one as well.
Or to the staff, is that an administrative nightmare, or will it be okay?
I think it's not a problem if they want to come in and basically ask for a refund, because instead of doing, 20 or more days, they're only going to do select number of days. I don't think that's unbearable. I mean, we can do that.
I've had a couple Transient merchants that haven't paid yet ask that same question, and I said, yeah, if you pay the max and you don't do those events, we would be happy to work with you to refund you. They just said it was easier to say the max up front, and then they would work their math back if they did. So we said we'd work with them on that.
Well, that sounds great. That's a great suggestion there, Glory. So what I hear the committee recommending, if I can sum it up here, is there's no break, but certainly it's self-limiting, and if they don't use the max, they can come back to the city and work with Gloria and Kelsey to redo that. Is that what I'm hearing? Anybody?
Yeah, I agree.
I like
Okay.
it.
We don't need to make Kelsey, I know you're on mute, but I don't need to make a motion or anything on this, do I? I mean, it's just for discussion.
Yeah, I guess,
Or you want a motion?
I'm struggling with a little bit because she did ask for the request, so I got to have an answer for her.
Well, then I will make a motion tomorrow night to allow for a reduction in fees if you do not meet the maximum number of days. You're welcome to apply back to the city for a refund. That's what the motion will read. And I guess if Beth wants to be on tomorrow night to address it, she can certainly do that. Okay. Yep. All right. Item D. Okay, this is a resolution approving plan specs and authorizing advertisement for bids for the proposed Long Pine Estates Phase 2. I assume that's you, John Pratt.
It is, Mr. Chair. Pretty routine here. It's just a resolution in the sequence of things here authorizing us to go out for bids for the Long Pine Estates Phase 2 project. We'd have those numbers before the June council meeting in time to be able to present those to the developer and the council, and then potentially move ahead if the numbers look good. So any questions about the project? We've talked about it a number of times, I think.
Any questions for John Pratt? Can you describe this project again, just real quick for me again, John? I apologize.
Sure. No. This would be, again, the second phase of Long Pine Estates, which is south of Longview Drive, between Longview Drive and Brainerd Village. I believe there's a related item on the CDC's agenda. This is for the Raymond Redding project, and he's proposing a PUD for a portion of the project. So the project in a nutshell is street, sewer, water, storm sewer, and some site grading for the subdivision.
Okay, so we'll make a motion to approve that resolution. Is that okay? Dan, Natalie, Matt?
Sounds good to me. This is Dan.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right. Item E, consideration proposal for landscape architecture services for schematic design and renderings at Washington Avenue and North Shore Drive intersection. I think before we get into it, John, maybe I would just ask Councilman Boki, this was his request. Maybe, Matt, you could just explain a little bit your vision, what you're looking for here.
I know I brought this up. Thank you, Mr. Holt. I know I brought this up previously. this is something that I think when we redo that South Washington, that we want to make kind of a grand entrance, a promenade heading into the beach. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know anything of how this would happen, but I think that would be a great thing. I look at, Jackson Hole, and there's a big entrance, you're there. You look at Duluth at the Canal Park, there's an entrance, you're there. It's something different, something special. And that's kind of what I see from heading south down Washington by North Shore at that roundabout there. Just get some ideas to see what that would look like. There again, I want to do this kind of feasible and not go, Taj Mahal, but yet I think it's worth a discussion as if we're redoing this. This might be our chance to redo it, as this opportunity not a lot of communities get. And I think this would be a great thing just to at least explore our interest level in doing this.
Okay, thank you. John, would you like to address this then at all? What?
Certainly, yep. Mr. Chair and committee members, this was in response to previous discussion that we had at the committee for doing something like this. We kind of put it on the back burner while we were focused on getting the plans and the specs ready to go, and we've kind of got to that point. And I reached out to a couple different places. Ultimately, Confluence, I think, is the going to be able to provide what we need to provide in the way of schematic options, and then moving from schematic options to some renderings that would show 1, 2, maybe 3 options sort of in real time, if you will, what they could look like down there. It'll be a little bit of a process. Anything like this is always a little bit challenging because what's neat and cute to one person is not neat and cute to the next. So, but I think if we get going on this, I can make the appropriate provisions in the South Washington project so that if we move ahead with something down there, I can take that into account when we're doing this. It would likely be done as a separate standalone project, but this is just the beginning to get somebody on board. I never talked to Kelsey about this, but perhaps we'll want to have some sort of a small committee, or maybe it's the whole Public Works Committee to look at these things, but I'll leave that to you guys to decide. So
I'm reading the agreement, John, and do they give you, I mean, I read the hourly estimates, which by the way means I'm way under bid here, but did they give you a cost estimate?
Yep. Let me find
I mean, I'm reading $2,600 an hour.
No, it's $2,600. They'll do it hourly. They're estimating $2,600, not to exceed $2,600 for the schematic design. So for call it napkin sketches, general ideas, and then you move into the next step, which would be rendering 1, 2, 3 of those options. We would have that latitude, and they're saying, up to 3 of those rendered would be another $3,900, not to exceed. If we land on 1 or maybe 2 of these that we really like, I would suggest that fee would be lower. I mean, it's going to be flexible. If we want them to render 6 of them, it's going to be more.
And did I take your comment to mean that if it's $6,500, we would build that into the city cost of the project?
I would assume that we will build the cost of this into the streetscaping element of the project, and probably incorporate it into that project cost. Yes.
Okay, Dan or Natalie, any comments on this?
Looks good to me. This is Dan.
I think it looks good also.
Kelsey or Sean, either if one of you want to chime in on this request? No? Okay. All right, Matt, anything I guess the committee would recommend we move forward with this? Anything else you want to add?
No, sir, not at this time. I just think this is a great golden opportunity for Detroit Lakes to really, capstone the beach area and really make this a first linchpin of redeveloping that whole Westlake Drive development. So we'll see where it goes.
I appreciate you bringing it up, Matt. I look forward to having a beer with you right at the entrance there with my dog.
There we go.
Not the dog. I don't have a dog, so.
I'll
All
bring
right.
mine.
Item F, consideration approval of a cooperative agreement with Becker County for the South Washington Avenue street and utility improvements. Approval is subject to the county acceptance by Becker County. John?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, again, we've got a number of these. This is similar to what we've done in the past when we've had cooperative projects with Becker County. The agreement is structured very similar to past projects, County Road 131, other portions of Washington Avenue. The meat and potatoes of this is really laying out the cost participation and the cost sharing of the project. There's some other legalese stuff in there that Charlie has, but really the intent is to be able to try to clarify our project costs. So this is what we've proposed, and as the motion says there, as the item says, obviously the county has to accept this as well. Jim has looked at it and didn't tell me that he wasn't in agreement on anything. So I think we'll be okay, but it has to go to the board yet.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. We'll recommend approval of that a cooperative agreement. Item G, John, I assume is also you?
Item G. Yeah, this is a formality, Mr. Chair. This is a resolution that MnDOT requires of counties when they're spending their county state aid dollars within a municipality. It's effectively just a resolution from the council that says, yes, we approve of the project. We've looked at it. We like it. In this case, we're the lead agency on the project, even though there's a lot of county funds in it. So.
All right. Unless there's questions, we'll recommend approval and move on. Item H, the cooperative agreement with Becker County for Westlake Drive. John?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is really the same thing as item F, except this is for Westlake Drive from Legion to 6. It mimics that agreement fairly close with a few changes that we thought were unique to that project. The short story there is the city is on the hook for the cost of the trail construction. And by and large, everything else would fall onto the county funds. And then if you recall, we have a grant, I think for $325,000 or something to that effect to go towards the trail. And I assume the balance would be paid by food and beverage tax.
Do you have an update for us on the status of that project as long as we're talking about it?
I wish I did. Not a lot, other than the quiet title action was filed, and folks that are involved or properties that are involved in that have been notified. So that'll take time to work through, just like anything legal like that. Outside of that, the archaeological study should be starting pretty soon. I'm waiting for some confirmation from MnDOT as to when they're going to be able to get their consultant up here to do that. But I would hope in the next few weeks we'd get that launched and maybe wrap it up in the next month or so. We did send out a property owner letter or an update, I guess. We had hoped to have another public meeting or a property owner meeting here, but with the COVID-19 issues, obviously that was impossible. So we opted to send out a letter with a little bit of a questionnaire, requesting some information and things like that. Been getting those back. Outside of that, I haven't heard a whole lot on that, but I would like to move that project design forward here over the summer months so that we're ready to go with that thing very early next year, as early as we possibly can. So.
Okay, thanks, John. Again, any questions or comments on Westlake Drive. Well, as long as I got you, John, before the next item, I know we have your engineer's report under the consent, and I know it's a long meeting tomorrow, but is there any reason or is there any committee members that feel like, or mayor, that you would like to have that taken off the consent? Anybody having a desire to do that? I hear not, John, so.
Okay.
Item I is a consideration of proposal to complete a traffic study for Frazee Street East and McKinley Avenue.
Yep, that one will be me again here. Again, I don't think this should be news to the committee. We have talked about this. This stemmed from next year. We are planning a rather large street reconstruction project. It involves Willow Street, but it also involves Frazee Street from Washington to McKinley and Home Street from Washington to McKinley. And this seems like the best opportunity, if there is one, if we're going to do anything at the McKinley and Frazee intersection ever, this would be the logical time to do it. I can't say we've necessarily planned for this, but it's a logical time to do something if we're going to do something. And when I say something, that's the purpose of the study, is to evaluate, do nothing, traffic signals, potentially some form of a roundabout, mini or traditional. And the reason for this study, if I can take just another minute to explain this, it's sort of twofold. If we do anything, say roundabout or signals, we have to have an ICE report at minimum. And that's probably right around $5,000 to $7,000 of this cost. The bulk of this is an actual traffic study that goes well beyond an ICE report. And the reason for that is an ICE report itself isn't going to give us all the answers that we need. That'll tell us if a signal system will function, if a signal system will actually function at that intersection for only the intersection. My big fear here with doing signals at that intersection or something else is it's going to have some repercussions at adjacent intersections. So for example, a signal, one of my concerns is going to start to queue traffic up on those legs and come across approaches and things like that. And that's what the traffic study is going to tell us. It's a little bit broader. They're going to look at some of the adjacent intersections and how traffic flows through there and do some modeling so that if we do something, we can have some confidence that it's not going to solve one problem and create 10 others.
Sure, and I know I read the cost, but just to fill us in again, is it $21,800?
Let me look here. I have this.
Say, John, while
Yes.
you're at it, do you want to fill in the committee? We actually got two proposals, so.
Sure. Yeah, we took two proposals, one from SRF, who just did our ICE reports and our intersection studies on Washington Avenue. They came in with, I think, a base cost, I'm trying to get to it here, of 18,000 and some change, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 18,200 is a base cost. There is an optional $3,600 fee that would involve recollecting traffic counts later on this year. Hopefully when things, quote unquote, return to normal. That's going to be one of the challenges we have of doing the study right now is, of course, traffic is down with the stay-at-home orders. Maybe by the time we get to this, things will have returned and we won't have to spend that 36, but that's just an option that we could exercise if we felt like it was necessary. So that's the SRF proposal. We did get another proposal just to sort of check SRF a little bit. Very good proposal from Stonebrook Engineering. They're out of the metro area. They're certainly qualified. They had a good proposal, slightly different approach, just some different nuances in some of the things they were going to do. But it was a bit higher, I think right around 25,000, if I'm not mistaken. So my recommendation is going to be award the traffic study to SRF if you'd like to proceed with this.
Yeah, John, you didn't get my proposal, but for $2,000, I could tell you what the problem is, but I
I'm
don't
willing to
think-
take that proposal, Bruce.
Yeah, well, I'm part of the mistake, so I'll fess up here, but between planning commission and council and whatever development authority, we should have carved out a little bit more land on the 3 legs there. You know, we couldn't do anything with Central Market, but we certainly had an opportunity to get some land before McKinley Plaza and Holiday and Taco John's all got in there, but it is what it is now. So you're right, we're going to need to figure something out. So anybody have any comment on the request for the study?
Say, Chairman Imholt, this isn't really related to item I, but unless the mayor objects, again, tomorrow night, we have to do every motion through a roll call vote.
Yep.
So if there isn't much discussion or any controversy, especially when I look at a lot of the items that John has with where we only had one proposal for E, F, G, H. I don't know why we couldn't do that with one motion.
Well, no, I agree. I think I would do F, G, H, and I as one motion. I think there may be some discussion on E, so I'd prefer to do that as a separate motion.
For the landscape proposal?
Yeah, but I agree that F, G, H, and I would all probably be, if the mayor's okay, I would make the motion for all of those in one motion.
Okay.
All right. Anybody object to that? Okay. Oh, thanks for bringing that up, Kelsey, because I think that's a good point. Move it along. Item J is the commercial dumping fee for the city compost and amending the city code 210. Is that Sean?
Yes, Chair. Just requesting to have a yearly commercial dumping fee for the grass and leaves at the city compost site. Currently, we have a sign up that states no commercial dumping, but it has been occurring over the years. So this would just allow the commercial dumpers the ability to dump the compost, being the grass and leaves only, not the branches. They'd prefer dumping at our site just for the fact Becker County landfill has $15 per ton dumping fee.
And is there a way for you to identify who the commercial, I mean, obviously they pull up with their truck with, landscaping on the side of it, I guess we would know, but is there a way to identify folks if they're not complying?
Yes, currently we have game camera stationed out there, so we do make calls to different people that are dumping illegally out there at this point. So we can identify the commercial dumpers.
Chairman Imholt, if I could jump in for a second. I think this is a start to probably a bigger discussion that we'll have to have with Public Works in the future about the compost site. Everything from the current location. I think people know there's current compost sites over on Stony Road on property that's actually owned by the Development Authority, and someday we'll have to relocate that. There was talk once upon a time putting it behind the new Public Works facility, which that may not work. So I think going forward, we got to think about location, and then access is the other thing that we run into. The compost site is not free. We get a lot of dumping on that site, especially from out of town residents and businesses. What I mean it's not free is, Sean, you had a quote to chip that brush pile is what, 35,000?
Yeah, real close to that $35,000.
So there is a cost to it. And again, when we're open 24/7 and the county site is not, when the county is charging $15 a ton and we are not, we get just a big volume of everything, not just regular compost, but branches and logs and stumps and everything else. So the other thing I talked to the city attorney about is we don't have a good penalty mechanism in place for those who are doing illegal dumping. So again, something I think you're going to see in the next couple of months is us proposing some sort of ordinance with a fine structure in place for people who illegally dump there. Now, if people dump garbage in there, that they're violating state statute. We do tag them for that, and we do go after them for that. But as far as regulating who's dumping there and logs versus compost, there's really not a state statute for that. So we got to look at developing an ordinance for it. But it is, as in most towns, compost sites can be a little bit of a hot topic, and it's no different here in Detroit Lakes.
That's a good suggestion, and I know for sure that happens because I'm out there and I can see people leaving the dump site or compost site and turning north on 59.
I think you're muted, Bruce. There you go.
I'm sorry, anybody else have a comment? Okay, we'll approve that dumping fee and we'll follow up then, Kelsey. It sounds like in a couple more months, you guys will have some more ideas for us.
Yeah, so again, this proposal is just a compromise because, again, our policy states we're not supposed to allow any commercial dumping of compost. And this is an idea we can at least let them still use this site since it's really accessible for a lot of our in-town contractors, but at least we recoup some of the costs for dealing with it.
Yeah, okay, good. Committee members, I haven't heard anything, so I assume everybody's on board with that. All right.
And then there's a resolution. You'll have to also make the motion for the resolution for the fee.
Okay, will do. So 2 separate motions, Glory?
It can be one, but just make sure you include that resolution in that motion.
Gotcha. And if I forget it, you'll politely remind me, right?
Sure.
Or kick me like my wife does. That's when, but you can't do that, can you? Okay, item K, consideration of authorizing the purchase of an ST60 stump grinder.
Chair, again, this is, I went out for quotes on a ST60 stump grinder. We got 2 bids back, one from Swanson Repair, one from Bobcat and Fargo. And what I did is currently we have a contract with Car Tree Service, and I pulled the numbers for the last 3 years. They're ranging anywhere from just under 14,000 all the way down to about 3,000. This year, because we kind of get put on the back burner, it's a fill-in job for them. And I know this coming year, just figuring what we would have in place would be roughly that $5,000 or $6,000 worth of stumps to grind. And I feel this is work that we can do as a city if we had a stump grinder, and we can keep up on the work ourselves. And for the cost of $6,500 for that stump grinder, I think over the years we would actually save money.
So this is a quote, not a bid. So we can take either one, correct?
No, you should still take the lowest quote unless there's a reason why. I mean, it's no different than the pickup truck discussion.
Okay. All right. Sean, if we approve this, I go to Fargo, I'd be happy to pick up that stump grinder. Do you need it back right away or can it stop at my house?
We have a lot of work for it right away.
Oh, shoot. Okay. All right. Committee members, anybody want to weigh in on this, please?
I think this is smart. I think this is a good investment for us that we can do the work ourselves. I think this is good proactive thinking on Mr. King's part. So I'm in favor for it.
Yeah, we need to do this.
All right. Natalie?
I agree.
All right, we'll recommend purchase. Okay, Sean, we're at the end of the agenda. Anything else that you had that was not on the agenda?
Yes, I have a few. No, not that was on the agenda. Then we go into the consent items.
Is there anything on the consent items you want to bring up?
Again, I have, we're requesting to sell, I believe, 10 items. It's permission to sell these items that are no longer being used, or we'll be fine without them at this time. There was a Zamboni, I believe 8 pickups, 3 trucks, and a scoreboard that come out of Arena 2.
Okay.
Mr. Imholt, a few questions if I may.
Yeah.
Where do we advertise these, I guess? I'm unfamiliar with this process, Kelsey, so or Sean, if you could fill me in. Where do we advertise these advertise the first question? 2, Sean, looking at this is quite an extensive list that we're getting rid of. It makes me a little bit nervous looking about replacement on this.
A lot of this equipment now, the Zamboni is going to be replaced. We did get a new plow truck this year, so that would be, so we're getting rid of a plow truck. We are also looking at some of this equipment. We have one, that 84 GMC. It is used only for cruise night. So it's used 4 times a year. We were able to transform a trailer that we were currently using for cruise night, being able to put all the equipment onto that trailer so we can hook it to any pickup now instead of just using one specific pickup for that reason. And that's what a lot of this equipment was used for. It was for one specific reason. I'm just trying to make things multi-purposeful.
Gotcha. So we're just basically streamlining the equipment list and getting by with fewer items.
Correct.
Excellent. Thank you.
And as for how we get rid of it, I know there's a couple sites out there. One is called MinBid. I'm familiar with this site. MnDOT, different counties, different cities, they put their items on that website for sale. So I would suggest using something like that, and then also making sure we put the stuff on our Facebook page. Especially one item would be that scoreboard from Arena 2.
Okay. Thank you.
We're being sold.
Sounds good, Sean. Anything else you want to bring up under the consent?
We also have the painting of the pavilion. We had 2 bids for painting and repairs, and I would suggest we go with the Northland drywall painting. Well, that is budgeted. Yes, that is a budgeted item also. Northland painting and drywall was the cheapest at $68.80 or $66.80.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any items not on the agenda, either consent or otherwise, Sean, that you have?
The other one left would be the library roof repair. That was budgeted also. Cheapest bid on that was Herzog Roofing for $28,320.
Sounds good. I know Tom maybe you want to just check with Tom if he has anything he wants to bring up to the committee.
Nope, that's it. I'm good.
Okay. Kelsey, anything that you want to alert the committee to?
Just the one thing, because we've been meeting via Zoom, we've held off on a couple of our public hearings. So one was that dock ordinance amendment. We were going to do that here in May, but we're just pushing that back until we can actually meet in person. So that's still on the to-do list. Again, the other thing that's kind of got put on the back burner is that Washington Ballpark grandstand. It's been a while since we've had that committee get together, and I don't know, Alderman Imholt will have to do that maybe at some point where we can get back together in person. And I still haven't gotten our quote on the architect proposal either. So I guess there's a couple of things that just got kind of pushed back until we can actually meet in person.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, that's fine. I know we had that facilities committee. We'll have to see if we can try to get something going on that, but we'll, like you said, it might be another month or 2 down the line. just go around the horn here then, Councilman Boki. Well, you're still muted. Bly, Councilperson Bly, as long as you're unmuted, anything you want to add?
Sean, I have a question for you. Are you getting requests from Lee Nelson about a park facility in the Long Lake Edition, Clear Creek area?
I got an email. I have not responded yet. I'm just getting some background at this point.
Okay, great. Because she messages me again today asking about an update on it. So I let her know that it's kind of in discussion and she'll hear something soon.
Right, and
Okay.
that'll end up having to go through the park board also.
Right. Okay, great.
Matt, and we're coming to Dan next, but Matt, anything you want to ask or have a comment on?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
No, I don't have anything, Bruce.
Okay. John, anything else you want to add that you didn't talk about already?
Yeah, just to mention real quickly, construction is starting to ramp up here now. Load restrictions are off last week. So you're going to see some activity on last year's projects, finish up work. For example, over on West Avenue, we've got a few blocks there that we need to get concrete in and paved. And then following that, we'd see a wear course that would get put down on everything. So over the course, I would say of the next month or so, you're going to see some activity. There might even be some small short-term detours for that project. And the same is really true for Randolph Road too. They're going to start, I think, later this week with some concrete work there, and within a couple more weeks, get the wear course on that one. So.
Okay, thanks, John. Mayor Brink.
Nothing more to add, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks for being on the call. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Speaking of construction, I know they're moving on the South Shore Park. They've been pretty busy out there. Glad to see we're doing something for the south side. Appreciate that. Ron is muted, so he can't say anything. Thank you. And if there is anything else, I appreciate you all being on the call today, and we'll catch you either tomorrow or later today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, Carrie. Thank you.
I won't be ending the meeting since we have another meeting at 4 under the same link. I'm just going to leave it on. So if you want to hang out, if you're on for the public safety meeting, otherwise we'll just kind of hang out for a little bit.
What about the 5 o'clock? Would I come back to the same link?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.